Well, hey everyone, my name is Derek Canton. I am the CEO and founder of Paerpay. Our business really makes payments simple and frictionless for restaurants. Our technology allows you to walk into a restaurant, sit down and eat, and just pay for your meal with a text message. And that way you can just get up and leave, not have to be stuck waiting for the check.
Hello, Derek from the West Coast.
West Coast here in California, staying warm. I figured if I'm gonna be quarantined, I might as well be in 80-degree weather. Making the best out of these crazy times, man. You can't really control the cards you get, but you can control how you react to it. And so we're just, as a team, doing the best we can.
I love it. I love it. You're my first West Coast conversation. I've been all around the world so far, but this is my first West Coast. So yay, West Coast. Tell me about how you started this company and who you are. So before you tell me about the company, where did you start and what did you learn or the experiences you had before you started this company?
Yeah, man. So there's definitely a lot of experience I would say that kind of shaped me into, being the founder that I am today. I remember, and the reason why I do quotations and I'll tell you a little bit of story. So I remember one of the very first projects I did was back in high school. It was my senior year in high school. It was the first app I ever did. And it was actually an app for my church. And my church grew from about 45 people to a little over 2,000. And I got to be a part of that whole experience. I learned a lot. And I remember me being a techie, I said, well, why don't we have an app for our church? And long story short is I ended up going and build it. And I remember someone there called me an entrepreneur, and I had no idea what the word meant at the time. I used my context clues and to kind of figure it out. But that was kind of one of my first entrepreneurial experiences, if you will. Went to college, did pretty well, and won the first ever business competition at my university. And I just fell in love with the process of building businesses. And the first couple of businesses didn't really work out the way that I wanted them to, but I think it was very important for the process of getting me to where I am today, right? I learned a heck of a lot, the process of selling, creating a product. I used to have a physical product, it was apparel that we were selling, which I'll never get into that again. But really for me with this current business, prior to this, I was working at Dell EMC. While I was there, I was running a consulting business that I was doing on the side. Had the opportunity to compete in the world's largest financial technology hackathon called Money 2020 in October 2016. And we ended up winning, which was incredible. We came in first place with First Data, second place overall. And then from there, just been on this journey of how do we make payments completely frictionless for people like ourselves.
Oh my God, I love it. So now, why did you decide to do this? Because like you're winning these competitions, you worked at Dell, you could have gone in any single direction. Tech is in. Tech is in. All of a sudden, all the nerds out there are saying, yes, it's my time. So why this product? What was the importance of it?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because I was originally looking for something. After my first business closed down, I was literally like itching for a business, and which is an interesting spot to be in. And if you are in that spot, I always encourage people like look for a real problem to solve. Don't build a business just because you want to run a company, right? And so I went through this phase of like 3, 4, 5 ideas of like just trying to find something, right? Just because I was like itching for another business. And luckily, the idea I had initially was in the food space around ordering. It's kind of funny because now that business is now a feature in, it's like DoorDash and Grubhub, and another conversation, they should owe me some money for that. But hey, we won't talk about that. But ended up kind of, pivoting a little bit to this focusing specifically on payments. And for me, my North Star has always been around customer experiences, right? Even back to the church app I built, it was like, okay, well, like, we have millennials and we have techies, and like, how do we provide them a better experience, right? And so for me, when I started looking at payments, I was like, well, the hospitality space is there hasn't been a whole lot of innovation in years there. And they have these archaic point of sale systems. I said, is there something that can be done here? And so with kind of that North Star of customer experience, and then just me being inquisitive around, payments, and then also kind of the parameters, if you will, of the hackathon, everything just kind of lined up, right? And so I fell in love with this problem. And then I think over the years, how we address the solution has kind of evolved a little bit.
So it's funny because I met you at a mutual friend's pretzel party.
Mm-hmm.
And it was when you first said this to me, the first thing I thought about, like, well, what if someone's not paying attention and they don't understand that there's an app associated with it and they just walk out? Or, this is the app. I'm part of your app. I walk out of the restaurant. How does it really work? Because it just seems really odd where it's like the dine and dash is what the first thing that comes into my mind when I'm thinking about your app.
Yeah, so our product is evolved, over, since COVID and everything. We did initially have an app that you would download. We quickly learned that an app, although there was a lot of benefits, there was also some restraints when you're talking about customer adoption, right? And so, kind of given the state of the world with COVID-19, contactless payments has become like the standard now, right? And so, getting people like my mom, who I love, to download and set up a new app isn't necessarily going to happen, right? Without her looking at me and say, "Hey, Derek, can you step up with this?" Yeah.
I had to teach my mom how to use Zoom, and that was like a little tricky. So, how to use an app for a restaurant, I'm concerned.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so we learned, we adjusted, and so we ended up pivoting and said, okay, well, what's the easiest thing you could do? And so we said, okay, well, one, let's get rid of the app, and then two, like, is there a simpler way we can do this? Like, no new hardware, no downloading apps. And so we came on this whole thread of text messages, right? And like, my mom can do text. She texts me all the time. She'll send me pictures, and I'm just like, all right, perfect. This is a platform we know it works. And so beyond just the experience for the guests, but also for the restaurant operators as well too, right? It's like, okay, well, we've seen solutions try and say, hey, take this iPad or take this handheld device and plug this chip in this and that. And it becomes expensive and clunky. And so we said, okay, well, let's simplify it even more. And so how our experience works today, whether it's dine in, takeout at the bar or whatever, because most restaurants are only doing takeout, I'll share with you kind of the takeout experience, but you call the restaurant, and you place your order like you traditionally would.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of happens then is they would normally ask you for your credit card number over the phone, which I had this experience given, COVID, and they asked for my CVV number and my credit card number, and I felt kind of dirty giving it to them, but they said, this is the only payment we're taking.
Yep.
With our product, restaurants don't have to do that anymore. All they have to do is say, what's your cell phone number? And what they do is they physically just type in that cell phone number directly into the point of sale system. You as a guest will receive a text message with a link to be able to view your bill, split, and pay and tip directly from your phone. And of course, you can use Apple Pay, Google Pay, and all that. And then the payment goes directly to the point of sale system. So the staff can see it, and there's no new hardware or software there. It's just a plug and play, and it works really, really well.
All right, so when did this launch, and was this stemmed because of COVID, or was it something that was already in play?
So it was 100% because of COVID. So it's interesting, our core product, with the downloadable app, we were literally planning on launching. It was the week before everything shut down. It was that Friday. We were talking with, some large restaurant groups. We were planning to launch as the New England Food Show. I mean, we spent money on these booths and the swag, and now we have boxes of t-shirts. So if you need a t-shirt, hit me up.
When you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we were like, okay, well, our product was focusing on dining in. And of course, dining in was at a complete halt with no, doors opening in sight. And so we said, okay, well, can we use this for takeout without actually getting into takeout? Because the takeout space is very crowded, right? And so for us to say, hey, we're going to pivot in 3 weeks and we're just going to say we're going to compete with, DoorDash or whatever, just didn't seem like it made sense from a financial perspective or a time investment perspective, right? And so we said, okay, is there a middle ground here where we could provide a solution that helps support takeout and then would be able to segue to dining in and the whole nine? And that's kind of how we came on this whole text to pay solution. And literally in the course of 3 weeks, we redid our website, we built the product, we signed up our first customers. I mean, we have now over 60 customers in our pipeline. Our first one went live on Cinco de Mayo. I mean, we're it's bananas. And I'll tell you some of the usage we're seeing. So of the restaurants that are using it, over 50% of their orders are placed over the phone. So physically picking up and calling the orders. 100% of those orders have been paid now with our platform because they no longer have to take credit cards over the phone. And taking credit cards over the phone is the #1 risk area of fraud for credit card fraud, right? And so they no longer have that risk. And also we're seeing an increase in tip averages as well too over takeout. So it's been incredible. The restaurants are loving it. It's been a really crazy journey and an exciting one to see people using it and actually helping them solve a real need here.
Okay, so one, I love your energy because people always talk about mine. Both of us are just same thing, so high energy, which I love. It makes me so happy. Security. Let's talk about security for a bit because it's great. And you're right. Whenever I have to put my credit card online and I'm like, you know what? I'm just waiting for secure. I'm just waiting for someone to own my things once again. It's happened for me in the past. So when someone is using this app, I mean, how secure is this platform that you've just built? I mean, it's 3 weeks, it's a baby.
Mhm. Yeah, so there's a couple things. So one is the good thing is because we've been in business now for about 3 years, compliance and security is something that we've been doing now for years, right? So we have our standards and policies in place. So there's kind of two sides of security. One is from the restaurant side, and also two is from the guest side. Because when you introduce technology to the operators, some restaurants are compliant and some of them aren't compliant. And so it's like, well, how can we keep the compliance scope as small as possible for the restaurants? So that way they don't have to stress about another, like what if there's a breach or this, and that, right? The good thing with our technology, how it's set up, if there ever was a breach, we personally don't touch or store any credit card data. The restaurant never sees or touches any of the credit card data. We leverage third-party compliance software that allows us to be able to process the payments. We have some really incredible partners as well too that supports us. So we are, without getting too technical, we are PCI compliant and the whole nine and whatnot. Which is, we have to go into that process because when it comes to payments, right, there's zero room for error. And we take that very, very seriously. And that's a promise that we give to our restaurants. And hey, look, the way this solution is set up, you guys will be covered and you will not have to worry about any, credit card breaches or compliance issues on your side. Because like I said, it's a black box that we seal up and secure, and we don't even touch any of those numbers.
How many of the restaurants that you worked with prior have jumped on board, and how are you seeking brand new ones right now?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been crazy because so one of the restaurants we started with is the second largest restaurant group in Massachusetts, and we're piloting with them for 5 locations, and now they're looking at 25 locations. There's another big group that we're getting ready to go live with now that has over 20 locations. I mean, it's been incredible, and some of these, our backyard names that everyone knows, like Summer Shack and Harvard Gardens, and all in the Boston area. But now we're talking to operators all over the country, California, Texas, St. Louis, Atlanta. And because it's literally just, it's software you plug in, you install it, takes about an hour to install it, then you're good to go, right? And so because the barrier to adoption is pretty low, and because the technology training aspect for the staff is pretty low, the adoption has been really, really awesome. And so now it's been 3 weeks. We have over 60 of them in our pipeline right now. So it's literally just like getting everyone scheduled and rolled out and getting them going. The adoption has been so exciting. And the best part is people are using it, right? And that's always the number one indicator of technology, is beyond just people buying it, but where their guests or their customers end up using it and loving the experience, and they are. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that, I mean, even just like, I mean, if you're thinking about Zoom, like in our entrepreneur ecosystem, we are on these platforms all the time. But I mean, even the creator of Zoom said, he's like, you know what? I wanted a lot of people to use my platform. I didn't expect the world to use my platform, and we weren't prepared for that. And I go, and we're learning as we're going and we're creating. And I think that's one of the things where people are finding ways to solve the problems right now. And there are going to be hiccups there are going to be hiccups, but because you can pivot very quickly to any situation, you can fix a problem as soon as you know about it, which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Your team, how big is your team, and how are they doing?
Yeah, so right now, we are a team of 4 people right now, and the team is doing great. I mean, I will definitely say that this is, although we're physically separated, this has brought the team together in ways that we couldn't imagine, right? I think that there's kind of pros and cons to being 100% remote. Is the pro is you're always on, and kind of the con is you're always on, right? So we've been very intentional about like actually encouraging people to like take time off. I mean, my co-founding CTO, I mean, he's the one who's building the tech and help doing the installs, and we're looking to potentially grow our team a little bit through this whole thing because we're just running so fast here. But like until we make that decision, it's on him from a technical and security, the whole 9. And so like I'm like telling him like, hey man, like take Friday off, like hey man, like I know you're always on, and I know there's a lot, and of course we love what we do. But I think that we have this new level of like, it's like work hard, play hard, but now we relax hard too, right? And just say, hey guys, like, when we first launched our restaurant, our first one, we said, hey, like, let's just like, we're going to take the rest of the day off. We're just going to grab a beer. We're going to celebrate. Like, let's just really enjoy the win. because it's like if you just move past it, then you're draining and draining and draining. And so making sure that, and I think it's a new perspective, right? And I remember I had one of my advisors talk to me about this whole thing of culture, right? And I think making sure that we have everyone who's on the same page of like, hey, like when a customer needs something, like, yeah, we show up, we deliver. But like when we have time to like unplug and relax and refuel, like we're going to take the time to do that. And like, if we need to say like, we're going to cancel our meetings tomorrow or whatever we need to do to like take the time to better be prepared, then like, let's do that, guys. And let's make sure everyone's communicating and transparent about it. And it's really boosted morale overall. And I think we've, for kind of the first times ever, we've had these opportunities. So when people are like struggling or feeling overwhelmed, like I feel like we're having those conversations about, mental and emotional health, which is just different. Right. And so it's really cool that I've had that level of transparency, because there are days, man, where it's great, but there's some days where it's like, man, I'm dragging. Right. And so that transparency, I think, has actually made our team a lot stronger. And I mean, honestly, I couldn't do it without the guys I have. I mean, I tell my CTO all the time, I'm like, dude, like, part of the reason why we move so fast because he's so great. And it's kind of funny. We have this relationship where it's like, he doesn't want to be the bottleneck and I don't want to be the bottleneck. Right. So it's like, he's like, don't worry, I'll get it done. Like, I'm like, he's like, what do you need? I'm like, well, like, once it's done, we can move forward. He's like, don't even worry about it. I'll do it tonight. Right. And the next day he'll follow up with me. I'm like, hey, how's it going with the customer? Oh, they're live. Great. We have to fix this. Don't worry. I got it. Right. So it's this kind of back and forth relationship of just, people that are both like very driven, which makes us a great team. And we are also encouraging each other, like, hey, just unplug, like, go spend time with your wife. Like, just, it's okay. Like system's not going to fall apart if you step away for a few hours here,
I have to say, like, I'm with you where when I am working with, like, I don't even want to say A types, but it's like A plus types. It is like that whole entire concept of, I don't want to let you down, so I work that much harder. So even like when I'm a runner. And so whenever I'm like, I pick people that, hey, do you want to run tomorrow morning? And I pick people that I am like, I can't let that person down. I am up at 4:30. I am ready to go. Let's go. Because it really does get you going. It keeps you energized. It keeps you inspired to be with individuals that are willing to work hard for you and you are willing to work hard for them.
Absolutely.
Great. What would you tell someone that is in technology right now? They have been sitting there, they're just like grinding, but they're passionate about something else. They want to build something else. They're not sure how to start, where to start, but right now they're home. And so when they're not on, they're kind of like just like aimlessly just thinking, this is my time. What would you tell a person that really feels it's their time? Where do they start? How do they start their own company?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So it's funny. I remember I was talking to my co-founder about this whole concept of kind of just progress. And I said, man, if I could go back to like high school and tell like my high school self, like, hey man, like I know you really want to do this, but I promise you it's going to work out. Right. And the one thing I always tell people who wants to start a company is like, figure out what you love doing and just start doing it. Right. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like, hey, today I'm starting a business, but like find a need. It could be as small or as big as you think and just start. And the more you do it, the more you're going to learn. I mean, our business has, beyond just COVID, has adjusted and pivoted and changed just so much. And before we officially founded the business in 2017, like from 2016, it was about 8 months of just me poking around and saying, like, do I want to pursue this from a time perspective and a financial perspective? But I mean, honestly, like where my origin started as kind of being entrepreneurial was just like finding projects I liked, right? And it's like, oh, this is a fun project. Well, let me make this, or let me play around with this thing. And I've been doing it for so many years now that, I'm self-taught in graphic design and video, and, like I do all the web design and like all these things. I'm just self-taught in it because I love what I do, right? It's not like I one day said, hey, I'm going to learn to build the best websites. It's the first website I made was ugly, man. And the first app I made was like terrible. Like, I mean, and I still have them saved. Like it's hilarious, just, they don't look cute, but like, I was like, but at the time I'm like, man, like I'm making something and this is great. Right. And so I think that's really what I would tell people is take the pressure away from like, hey, like I got to build a business. Right. And figure out what you're doing. Now, the one thing I will say to kind of as a caveat is that business is a science, not an art. Right. So yes, do what you love, but there's a point where people are thinking like, hey, I'm unemployed, I'm getting paid so I can start my own business. Like now it's a time to like, okay, man, well, when unemployment's up and you have to be self-sustaining, you have to make sure the economics are there too, right? So one, it's do what you love, right? But make sure it's sustainable from a financial perspective. And if it's not, come up with a plan where it can get there, right? And I mean, I was working at Dell while I was working on my business when I first got started. I mean, I was there for an extra year while I was working on my business because I knew economically it just didn't make sense for me to just take the leap yet, right? And I had to work more and longer than everybody else, but it worked out and I loved what I did, and it's a season. But I think that's really the biggest thing I'll say is just start with what you have. You know, you don't have to have the fanciest computers or the best skills, but just find what you love and just start doing something, right? And once you get in the process of moving and that momentum, it will naturally bring you down a path where opportunities open up.
Fantastic. You talked about making sure that the staff takes time. You talked about people that are considering looking for something to start their new business, to have a passion. What are you doing when you're not working? I mean, you have to balance this. I mean, you could be online all the time, but you are not in Boston right now. You are on the West Coast. You are seeing, I mean, I can see the sun coming through your windows. What are you doing to balance this? Because you have to make sure your team's okay. You have to make sure that you're okay. You have to make sure your customers are okay. And you have to make sure that your relationships are okay. What are you doing to balance your time? And are you learning anything new from that time that you're taking away from work?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not necessarily the best at this. I will say that transparently. I am improving here. And I still do the consulting stuff on the side because I just love it. And I love helping other startups with their problems too. So it's kind of funny because how I unplug is doing product design work for other companies. Like I genuinely enjoy that. But I do make time to like exercise. One of my favorite activities is playing Frisbee. And it's just like, I can go to the park and just play Frisbee for hours, right? I just love that, right? And so, you know, taking time to also reconnect with family and loved ones, you know, during this time it's been incredible. I've spoken to my cousins more than I have probably like ever, because it's just like, now is the perfect time to do that. I mean, people don't have excuses now to connect, right? It's like, hey, like you can just Zoom call or FaceTime somebody, like just do it, right? And so
wait, I wasn't home when you called.
yeah, right. Exactly. You know, like yeah, you're not going anywhere. I know you're behind that TV. You know, like I know you're behind that computer. Like I see you're available on Instagram. You know what I mean? So it's like it's just really been like really taking time to like hang out with my siblings or you know connect with my family members, and of course my girlfriend out here is in San Diego. So like just taking time to like even just like walking the dog, right? So like I'll wake up and like one of the first things I do is like I go outside and I walk the dog and I try and like leave all my electronics at home and just be present and breathe. That's been super helpful, but also there's been times where it's like a sprint, right? And so, you know, something I always tell my team members, it's like, it's seasons and we're a little bit of a sprint season right now, but it won't last forever, right? So we said, we're going to work and we're going to get these things taken care of. But when we do see opportunities like this afternoon, you know, like once I have like a couple meetings after this, but once this is done, like I'm closing this laptop because man, I've been cranking it this whole week. So it's really just being intentional about time.
If you, in a perfect world, tomorrow everything goes back to the new normal, what does your first day look like?
New normal. I mean, honestly, I don't think it's gonna be that much different because we're thriving with how things are set up. And I mean, I think we'll be out more and whatnot. But I think really, I mean, it's gonna be interesting because our customers are restaurants, right? And I think determining what looks like for them will be really interesting. So really, I mean, when things get back to whatever normal looks like, I think it's going to be still, you know, people are going to mostly be working from home because economically it makes sense for a lot of businesses. I think now people are, whenever they go outside, it's going to be more intentional time to connect with people, right? And so I'm looking forward to that because I miss just like hanging out with everybody, right? So there's definitely that component of it. But from a business side, I think that what we're doing is working. You know, we have a great dynamic. Of course, I'm looking forward to seeing the guys, and you know, maybe we'll do like once a week of being in the office or something like that. But for the most part, you know, I think that we are in a good spot, and we have a good dynamic here.
I saw you in the news the other day. You're getting a lot of attention, which is fantastic. How do you prepare yourself for getting bigger, faster? Because as I mentioned Zoom before, they didn't expect it. A lot of restaurants are going to be seeking you. I mean, you are getting a lot of media attention, and a lot of people want to be open. They need to be open so that way they can actually have their staff and make sure that what they worked so hard for will actually stay alive. So how are you preparing for that influx of business that you would mean that you want, but you weren't anticipating what's happening right now.
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're working on now, right? Is thinking of, okay, when we have our first 100, then our first 1,000, right? Like how do we have the systems in place to support us? So we are taking steps from a technology side to be able to cover and implement, but also from a human resource and kind of processes side as well. From a sales position, we are actually bringing in a few commission-based sales guys, so that's been supportive and helpful. But also now we're talking about like customer success, right? Before something goes wrong, how do we make sure things are going right? Versus being reactive to, oh my gosh, there was a hiccup, right? And say, hey guys, don't worry, things are covered. This is our process, right? And so we're doing that. And I think, sometimes startups don't always take the time to put the process in place because you can just run faster on your own. But we're really taking the time now, even with these first few restaurants we're working with, because a lot of the restaurants we're even signing aren't even going to be opening for another month or two, right? So it's like we're going to go from 5, 10, and then a month later, it's like, hey, we're opening up 50 1 month, right? Because that's just the way how things are lining up. So we need to make sure we're ready to be able to support that traffic. And from a technology side, it auto scales and the whole nine, and the CTO does all that stuff, right? So we're covered there. But I think there's just a human side that we're just accounting for to make sure things just continue to move smoothly. So we feel good about
that. Being like the devil's advocate here, there's a lot of restaurants that are opening right now. Anticipation from what they're saying is like the numbers of individuals that are going to get sick are going to go up. A lot of those restaurants may have to close down again. What would you say to these restaurants? Because they're needing to be open. They have a lot of bodies in. They're trying really hard, sort of, kinda, to prepare themselves for a healthy environment. What would you tell them in regards of how to prepare themselves for staying open in this way, but adding another element to their organization, or the ones that may potentially have to shut down, but they really want to stay open, one way or another? Like, what would you say to them, and what's the best advice to actually get them on the right mindset to keep their companies alive and well?
Yeah, and I mean that's a tough question, and there's a lot of components because a lot of these places are opening at like 25% capacity, right? There's people talking about having 6 feet between each table, and right, and so now you're changing. We talked about before, like how business is a science, right? So the numbers of tables that are in there, and they have a whole projection in place there, and so that adjusts everything. I think really, we've seen places, or we've seen, technologies like Grubhub and Uber Eats that are candidly robbing restaurants, right? And because they have so much market share, operators are like, well, I have to do this. And they're losing money pretty much for every single transaction, right? And I think one thing is that we're going to see is that operators are going to be more intentional about the technology stacks that they're using within their restaurants, right? And so, making those decisions and being very cautious about that is very intentional. But also, one thing I recommend too is leveraging the resources around you too, right? So one of the people that we're working closely with is organizations is the Massachusetts Restaurant Association, and understanding what they're doing and their policies and how we can align with them. And then also with our platform, part of the reason why we didn't want to do hardware is because hardware is expensive, right? And so, in a lot of cases for us, we're doing very heavily discounted or some promotionals to help restaurants get up and going. But like the biggest thing I've kind of been talking to operators about is saying, hey, like, don't be afraid to ask for something, right? If you're talking to your vendor and you guys want a financial break, like, ask them for it, right? And they should be understanding, and they should really be able to kind of accommodate and adjust there. But it's really, it's a lot, and it depends on the size of the restaurant. There's some small restaurants that are doing really, really well during this time. But when you have places that have such large physical footprints, and their whole thing was coming in the experience, for them, it's like, it doesn't make sense for them to open at 25%, because at 25%, they're losing money, because they have to, spend up the whole operation just to get an output of, losing X dollars a day, right? And so now it's like we've seen restaurants getting all sorts of creative with kind of aligning with brands, and there's people talking about ghost kitchens, and there's so many things that are starting to happen in the industry. But I think that the number one advice I would tell operators is find a great resource, whether it be the Massachusetts Restaurant Association, or you can stay on top of what's happening, because that's what I'm doing, right? And we're working closely with our operators, because we're like, what are you seeing? Like, what are you doing? Like how are your customers responding? Because like, as much as I want to say I'm an expert, like this is new for me, right? We're all learning as much as we can. And so it's like, in all transparency, as we're talking, is that we're guys, we're like, hey, like tell us what we need for us to work. And I tell an operator, like, hey, if this is a technology that works for you and you love it and you need it, like we'll figure out a way to make it work. Because if it works, then you're gonna keep it and you're gonna keep using it, and so will your guests, right? So we're like fine, like whatever you need to do, like we'll get you up and running, but just tell us how things are moving forward here. So I think the really biggest thing is it's just communication. Talk to other operators. You know, I tell, you know, restaurant people like, hey, like you can even contact me. I'm happy to talk about our competition, what they're doing and why we're different, why we're better. And if we're not the right fit for you, like totally fine, but how can I help you, right? And I think that mentality has really, you know, helped this culture and community with hospitality.
Two things that you said that I just want to like follow up on. Ghost kitchen, what is that?
Yeah, so this whole ghost kitchen thing is this whole idea of like you have a place that like is not branded, but you give them your recipe and they'll just cook everything for you, and then like they can find someplace that delivers it and whatnot. So it's like you have less of a physical footprint, but it's like a shared kitchen model, right? And so I don't think it's gonna last. It'll be interesting to see how sustainable that is. But it is something newer that people are looking at. But kind of guests yourselves wouldn't really see that. It's just more of an operational side of things.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, good to know there. And the Grubhub, the whole entire delivery service apps, you are on. I mean, like that's like a big story. I mean, I read a article on it, and I can't. I mean, I don't want to say the publication because I can't remember which publication it was, but it was one of the big ones, and it was very interesting in regards of the amount of money that they rob from the restaurants is insane. It's absolutely insane. And so it's really sad because again, we want to find the conveniences, but we don't know the rest of the story. And having these conversations with you guys, it really helps a lot because people get to hear a lot of the rest of the stories for a lot of different industries that people find it, it's convenient, it's easy, it's user-friendly. It makes my life just like bells and whistles, but it is one of those moments where like, I didn't know. So that's really good to know. All right. So last question, because I know you're a busy person. I mean, you're on fire right now. I love it. If you were going to have an ask for yourself and for your company, what would the ask be for anyone that's listening?
Yeah, so the number one thing I ask is if you are a restaurant operator or you know any operators that are struggling or need this type of technology to reduce risk, to help them think about their planning, their messaging for opening up a restaurant, like please reach out. Like I said, we just want to help and genuinely support restaurants wherever we can. And if we can help and support them, that's something that my commitment is to be able to do that. And so you can find us at paerpay.com. You can reach out to us at hello@paerpay.com as well too. That goes directly to me. But honestly, like genuinely from my heart, we understand the struggles that restaurants are having, and it breaks my heart. And so anything we can do to support you guys is really my ask. It's like, hey, if you know somebody, just have them reach out.
You are awesome, Derek. Thank you so very much for taking time out of your day. And I know that, I mean, especially because it's earlier where you are. So I really do.
It's only 11 o'clock. It's not that bad.
Okay. Then I don't feel guilty at all anymore. But thank you so very much. When this is all over, and look, mind you, whether it's the end of the summer, whether it's the end of the year, maybe it's the start of the year, I want to come back and talk to you and see how this all evolved. Because again, this is like a 3-week-old baby that you have that's really blowing up. And I want to make sure that as many people can hear and hear about it, but also there's a lot of restaurants that they know. I mean, everything you said is very tried and true. There's a lot of restaurants that I love, like literally globally that I love. And I hear all these stories all the time. Where like, this is like my family owned business. And I can't be the generation that shuts down my family owned business because I didn't know how to pivot. I didn't know how to come up with something brand new. And so you existing is helping a lot of dreams. A lot of people that had really great dreams to stop their jobs to create this business, and they don't want to let it go because of a pandemic. So thank you for existing. Thank you for pivoting. Thank you for creating what you're doing. And I appreciate you.
Hey, well, the pleasure is all mine. And like I said, we love what we do. And I think the thing that gets us most excited is we're just scraping the surface. So it's going to be a wild journey. I'm looking forward to that update and sharing with you. And then also when you start using our technology, it's going to be fun. So I'm excited.
Just tell me the restaurants that have it and I will definitely be using it.
Awesome. Perfect. We'll do that.
All right. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you. We'll talk soon. Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.